Johnson. He's down to the goal line. He's over.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video. And welcome to the Gridiron. Before we get started, just want to say thank you so much to everyone out there who's been watching my videos. Thank you. If you maybe give this video a thumbs up or possibly leave a comment below or maybe even share this video, it would mean so much to me. But anyway, just thank you so much for just taking time out of your day to check out this video. Thank you. Well, the New York Giants. There's not a heck of a lot going on. A little tidbit story here, a little bit tidbit story there, but like nothing I can, see making much of a video on. So I'm going to continue my series, which I started last year, kind of like the off season. I think I started doing this, going over the Giants seasons. It's probably back in June and July last year when sometimes there's just like really nothing going on. The guys are away, the OTAs and the little mini camp and all were done in June, and the guys have like over a month off. So it's basically what it was last year. It's the same way it is this year. It's like not a lot to talk about. So I said last year I just started going over the Giants seasons. I guess I went from I did the first 10 seasons last year. Maybe if a story popped up, maybe I did a video on it, but for the most part, there wasn't much. So I did last year, I did from 1925 to 1934. Now I've started here, I did 35, 1936. So this is my third one that I've done this year so far. So it's the 1937 season, the 13th season in the history of the New York Giants. Now, 1933, 34, and 35, the Giants went to 3 straight championship games, all right? 1936, I'm doing 1937. So 1936 season was obviously the year before this. They had a losing season. It was not a good season. Their offense wasn't was kind of like a 2021 New York Giants. Was not very spectacular. Defense wasn't very good, and they had a losing season. But, basically, I think the first 20 seasons in the Giants' history, they only had 3 losing seasons. So I'll take that anytime. If you can go a 20-year span and have 17 winning seasons and only 3 losing seasons, I'll take that anytime. So 1937, the Giants, they were back to their winning ways. They had a winning record. They, fell just short of going to the championship game. If they won the last game of the season, which was at home, they would have gone to the championship game. But as I mentioned in the video yesterday, in 1936 it was the Boston Redskins, right? They moved in 1937. They moved to Washington. Now they're the Washington Redskins, okay? But not only did they move to Washington, but they also got a guy by the name of Sammy Baugh, okay, who played from 1937 to 1952 with the Redskins. He'd be a pain in the Giants, thorn in their side, okay, for a long time, okay. And this season was no different. The Giants' first game of the season was against the Redskins. The last game of the season was against the Redskins. So Sammy Baugh's first game ever was against the New York Giants. And it was just a tough season. The Giants had, a win here, a win there, and they would have been to the championship season. But it was not meant to be. But, all in all, it was just another successful year for the New York Giants. So let's take a deep dive, shall we, into the 1937 New York Giants, which just happens to be the 13th season in the history of the New York Giants. All right, New York Giants. This is the 1937. There's their team picture here. You'll notice down here, 1937 Giants team photo. 17 rookies made the 25-man roster. They need a little overhaul after the 1936 when they had a losing record. They were not very good. And the Giants, unveiled their now familiar blue jerseys. Okay, so a little tough to tell. That's blue. Okay, so that's the New York Giants in their blue jerseys for the first time ever in 1937. Then you got the Giants here. Giants, the National Football League ended the 1937 season with a record with 6 wins, 3 losses, and 2 ties, finishing second in the NFL's Eastern Division. All right. Giants netted 128 points, and the defense squad gave up only 109, which is a lot better. They scored, they gave up like 180, 36, so the defense got better. Their offense got a little bit better too, but 128 points is obviously it's not very good. But even back then, this was not very, very good. Hank Soar ran for a team leading 442 yards in New York, while Tuffy Lehman's also buoyed the ground attack. Ed Danowski passed for 814 yards. Okay, Tuffy Lehman's hauled in 11 passes for 150. I guess he was the leading receiver. 11 pass receptions. They played 11 games, so he caught 1 ball a game for 157 total yards. The opportunistic defense, now this is impressive, in 11 games, they led the way. They had with 44 turnovers. So basically their defense got 4 turnovers per every game. And their soon-to-be long-time coach, Steve Owen, coached the team. He coached until 1953. So he coached longer than any Giant coach in history. All right, then you got the Giants here, okay? All right, you say, 1937, they're 6-3-2. They were second in the NFL Eastern Division. Now, what gets you here, I mean, this is, the first game of the season and the last game of the season were against the Washington Redskins, okay? They lost here 13-3 in the last game of the season at home in front of over 58,000 fans. They lost 49-14. So, I mean, they had a couple tough. I mean, they tied the Bears. They always seem to lose. The Lions always just kick the crap out of them every time. They did beat them one time last year, but they've lost 3 out of the last 4 games to the Lions. The Lions just seem to whoop up on them really bad. And then they had a tie here against the Brooklyn Dodgers, 13-13. This one really wouldn't have mattered because even if they didn't tie, say the Giants won this game, right, it wouldn't have mattered because they lost this game here. So even if they won this game, it really wouldn't have mattered. But I mean, the Giants had 2 cracks at the Redskins. If they could have beat them either time, the Giants would have wound up winning. Okay, because the Giants would have been, if the Giants beat them either time, the Giants would have been 7-2-2. Okay, but just not meant to be. But then 1937. All right. Was the 18th regular season in the history of the National Football League. Now, the National Football League was around 5 years before the Giants came in. So that's why it's the 18th season in the history of the NFL. But it's the Giants' 13th season because the Giants started in 1925. The Cleveland Rams joined the league as an expansion team. Meanwhile, the Redskins relocated from Boston to Washington, D.C. The season ended with the Redskins, led by their rookie quarterback, Sammy Baugh, who would be a thorn in the Giants' side for quite some time, defeated the Chicago Bears in the NFL championship game, 28-21. Now, what happened? Let's see. These are the same 5 teams as the year before, but the Rams, you'll notice, I mean, there was the same, there was 9 teams in 1936, okay? So you had these 5, then the Bears, the Packers, the Lions, and the Cardinals, okay? And then the Cleveland Rams came in. As you see, they were a little bit of an expansion team, a little bit bad. They were 1-10. Only scored 75 points, gave up 207. Not very good. But this season, every team played 11 games. The year before that, every team played 12 games. For some reason, they went down a game. Don't quite know why, but the 1937 NFL Draft was held on December 12, 1936 at New York's Hotel Lincoln. With the first pick, the Eagles selected running back Sam Francis from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. There you go. Now we're talking. Major rule changes. All right. All players are required to wear numerals on their jerseys whose color must be in sharp contrast with the jersey color. The numbers on the front must be at least 6 inches, while the ones on the back must be at least 8 inches. If a kickoff goes out of bounds, the ball is put in play either on the opponent's 35-yard line or 10 yards from the spot where it crossed the sideline. The penalty for an illegal forward pass that is thrown beyond the line of scrimmage is a loss of down and 5 yards from the spot of the foul. Okay. Now, division races was a couple good. The division races were decent. All right, midway, all right, through the NFL's 11-game season, the Bears were unbeaten, 5-0 in the Western Division, while the Giants were leaders in the East at 4-1. Giants lost their first game to the Redskins, so they started off 0-1. But then they started, winning, and they played the Giants and the Bears played each other, and then they played to a 3-3 tie. Giants and Bears continue to stay in the lead in the divisions, and the Bears clinched a spot in the title game with its 13-0 win over Detroit on December 5th, 1937. Final game of the season had Washington 7-3, and they were at 700. Okay, the winning percentage. All right, traveling to the Giants 6-2, but the Giants' winning percentage was 750. All right, so the Giants would have been in first place. A win or a tie by the Giants would give the Giants the Eastern title. The Redskins triumphed 49-14 and got the division crown and the trip to face Chicago in the 1937 championship game. So, I mean, tie or a win, the Giants were in. Now, you'll notice here, like the first championship game was 1933. From 33 to 46, okay, finally it took the Eagles to 1947 to snap that streak, all right? But you'll notice every year from 33 to 46, the first 14 championship games, either the Giants or the Redskins went, okay? The Giants, then the Giants, then the Redskins, then the Redskins, then the Giants, Redskins, Giants, Redskins, Giants. If I can get that out of the way, Giants, okay? Then you got this year, you got the Redskins, and then you got the Giants, and then finally the Eagles, right? Got in there, but they say it's either the Giants or the Redskins every year, and a lot of that had to do with Sammy Baugh. Okay, and the Redskins, this is their first year in Washington. All right, and Sammy Baugh didn't have super spectacular numbers, especially by any stretch. He's 81 out of 171, 47% completion. He only threw 8 touchdown passes. He had 14 interceptions, but he was a special talent. He could throw the ball. He was a good punter, and I know at least one of the years he led the league in interceptions on defense. Because remember, back then you had to play offense and defense. But this year, this is the first game of the year. This is the article in the New York Times. Okay, Baugh passes helped Redskins win 13-3 over the Giants. This is Sammy Baugh's first ever football game. The Giants, they played in front of 25,000 fans in Washington, okay? Smith kicks 2 field goals, snares a Giant. He picked off a Giant pass and ran it back 52 yards and had the placement. So the Redskins guy, Smith, he scored all 13 points for the Redskins. Let's see here. Washington, September. It was on a Thursday night. They started the season. All right. Because this paper is Friday, September 17th. So they started on Thursday, September 16th, 1937. Let's see. The greatest bit of pitching Griffin Stadium has been since the days of Walter Johnson gave the transplanted Redskins a 13-3 victory tonight over the New York Giants in the debut of the National Football League in the city. So, and that was also the first game ever in Washington, right, for the Washington Redskins, gathering at 25,000 fans, which the Redskins did not get when they were in Boston. They had a hard time getting attendance in Boston. That's the reason why they went from Boston to Washington. Gathered 25,000 watched in sheer amazement as slinging Sammy Baugh tossed the pro Giants into defeat. Twice he spun the ball through the chill night breezes in a series of passes that set the stage for a pair of field goals. Riley Smith kicked both of them, one of 19 yards in the first period. Then the Giants tied it up at 3. Okay, then he kicked another field goal of 18 yards in the fourth period. So it was 6-3. The Giants had a chance. The Giants had the ball, and they were moving down the field, possibly for at least maybe the tying field goal, okay? But in between, the New Yorkers stampeded down the field into pay dirt time and time again, only to have the Redskins turn them aside at the final barrier. Once Tilly Manton booted a 14-yard field goal to tie the score. Okay, so it was 3-3. Then they scored. The Redskins scored to make it 6-3. Then the Giants. Okay, that, however, was merely postponing the inevitable. Washington slipped ahead on the second Smith placement, then drove the game out of reach in the closing minutes as the Giants had the ball driving down the field, possibly maybe to try to score a touchdown, at least maybe get a field goal attempt, okay? But a New York pass was intercepted by the same annoying Riley Smith, and he ran it back 58 yards for a touchdown that settled the game. All right. Smith scored all the points, but Baugh was the man of the hour. He proved beyond all peradventure that he is one of the football marvels of the age. Texas Christian ace pegged 16 passes, completed 11 out of 16, gained a mere 116 yards. The other 5 tosses could have been caught just as easily as not. And not only could Mr. Baugh throw the ball, but he was as good a running back as there was on the field. He spelled the difference between victory and defeat for the Giants, who with the Redskins were making their league debut for 1937. So, I mean, the Giants gained some yards. They had 226 yards rushing. They had 17 first downs. The Redskins only had 105 yards rushing. What the article said, the Giants were moving up and down the field. They just, when it came to making the plays, they didn't do it. So, I mean, that was the first game. That's when they lost 13-3. That was the first game of the season, right? They lost 13-3 to the Redskins, okay? Then you got, this is the last game of the season, right? But, you know, all the Giants had to do is, once again, this is the article from the New York Times, okay, December 6th, 1937. Over 58,000 people see Redskins keep the Eastern title by, what the hell does that say? Routing Giants at Polo Grounds, right? Here's a touchdown right here. Got to see the guy with the ball right here. Cliff Battles rolling over teammate Turk Edwards to score first Redskins touchdown. I guess that's Turk Edwards right there. He's got his ass on his back right there. This guy over here, see him smiling? I guess he must be a Redskin. He's looking up in the air. I guess he's got his hand in his air. Yeah, we scored. But, yeah, Giants, 58,000 people. Tied or won, they would have won the division, would have gone to the championship game. Just goes to show you, I mean, you know, the Redskins were definitely a better team. Now, also here, this is a pass that Sammy Baugh threw. I don't know who he's throwing the ball to right here. Ball's going to somebody. An example of the pass that had the Giants club baffled. Riley Smith about to receive a forward pass from Baugh. Also in the clear and eligible area is Cliff Battles right here. Okay. But, yeah, Sammy Baugh, he was special. He was special. Now we got Washington Redskins as hot as the Great Chicago Fire routed the New York Giants 49-14 at the Polo Grounds yesterday to gain the Eastern Championship of the National Football League and the right to meet the Bears in the playoff at Wrigley Field next Sunday. Those poor Bears, they seem to be in for it. Yes, they were, because they wound up losing it. There is not a superlative in the English language that can quite describe the magnificence of the Washingtonians. Their charging had the New York Rock completely back on their heels. The Giants only had 18 yards rushing the whole game. I mean, they had over 200 yards the first game against the Redskins. The last game at home, they had 18 yards rushing. You know, when you're also losing by a lot too, you're not going to try to establish the running game either. But you know. The second largest crowd in professional history, I guess Giants history, or the NFL history maybe. A gathering of 58,285 that hung on rafters, jammed runways, and packed the aisles to the suffocation point attended, with most of the spectators hoping to see the Giants regain the laurels they had lost to the Redskins a year before. But the fans stayed to marvel at the Washington combination and its barefaced massacre of the New York hopes. Not only did they see a great football team, but they saw a great football game, the most dramatic of the season. They watched the Redskins rush off the 21-0 lead, okay, at the half, and then saw the Giants come storming back to make it 21-14. All right, we got a football game here, guys. Within a touchdown of a tie, and a tie was all they needed to turn aside the Redskins. Remember, if the Giants won or tied the last game of the season, they would have gone to the championship game. But once they got to 21-14, it was all over, folks. There was a setup that had the vast crowd tingling in anticipation, but the tie was not to be. The Redskins perpetrated their version of the Boston Tea Party on the New Yorkers, tossed the Giants overboard instead of innocuous tea, rolled on to a 28-14 lead at the completion of the third quarter. So the Giants were kind of still in it. 28-14 going into the fourth, all right? But then they finished the job with a 3-touchdown splurge in the final quarter. By that time, nothing mattered. The Giants tried hard enough, but just did not have it. There was no Cliff Battles or slinging Sammy Baugh in the New York lineup, which there wasn't. Giants had some good quality players, but offensive-wise, with the firepower between the Cliff Battles and the slinging Sammy Baugh, nope, didn't have it. That was the difference. The way Battles carried the ball had to be seen to be believed. No greater back ever appeared in the Polo Grounds than the one-time West Virginia Wesleyan ace. He went 75 yards on a reverse and 76 on an intercepted pass to sample romps that hardly indicated his sheer superbness. Anyone would have a hard time convincing 58,285 eyewitnesses that a mightier halfback ever cavorted on turf. As for slinging Sammy, he was pitching strikes all afternoon. He pegged 15 passes and completed 11, setting a new league record of 80 completions for the season. And he's a rookie. And he just set a record. 80 completions in one last game, because the year before that they had 12 games. Here he only did it in 11 games. His endeavors yesterday accounted for a mere 128 yards. That was the secret of the Redskins' success. Battles and Baugh had the Giants in whiplash. As soon as they tightened for Battles, as far as running the ball, all right, then Baugh struck overhead with his passes. It's a tough 1-2 combo, guys. And when they spread out a bit for Sling and Sam, the cantering Cliff was off to the races. Washington and New York coming and going, and no team or individual ever had much success heading in two different directions at one and the same time. So, statistically, he's telling you a story. A net gain of 18 yards rushing indicates how futile the New York Giants running game was against Turk Edwards and the unsung heroes of the Redskin line. So, first half, the first downs here, Redskins had 12, Giants had 4. It was kind of, the second half pretty much even. But, the Redskins, they had the 200 yards rushing, right? The first game, the Giants had a lot of yards rushing. But, they had, 154 yards passing, 238 yards, they had almost 400 yards of offense compared to 230 for the Giants. It was just too much to be. It was just, it's like, anytime you get a good quarterback and a good running back, or, sometimes, today's maybe a good receiver and a good quarterback. It's a tough, act to follow. And, the Giants just couldn't hang in there with them. But all in all, 1937 was a successful year for the Giants, the Redskins were certainly the better team this year, but, the Giants, can only blame themselves. All right, they had played the Redskins 2 times. They lost to them both times. If they would have beat the Redskins one of the 2 times, the New York Giants would have won the Eastern Division in 1937, and it would have gone to the championship game. But it was just not meant to be. But better times are ahead for the Giants. The Giants, in the next, eight seasons or so, are going to go to the championship game 5 more times. So better times are ahead for the New York Giants. So you see, the Giants, it was a successful season. I mean, it always comes down to, obviously you want to make the championship game and all and everything. And obviously you want to win the championship, but it was just not quite meant to be. But I mean, the Giants got back on track again. They had a winning season. They had the destiny in their own hands. If they could have won the last game of the season at home in front of over 58,000 fans, they would have gone to the championship game. But there was better times ahead. The Giants in the next, I believe it was like nine seasons, they would go to 5 more championship games. But it was either like 10-year stretch, 10, 11-year stretch where either the Redskins or the Giants went to the championship game. All right, so I mean, it just, the Giants were very good back then. It just, 1937 just was not quite their season. Well, as always, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video. You guys stay safe out there and go Giants. Woo!